Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. Today we are going to be discussing the ninth most haunted castle in England. Oxford Castle is best known as Oxford Castle and Prison, and it is located in the western side of Oxford, in southern England. When William the Conqueror found victory in the 1066 Battle of Hastings, he became the King of England. In 1071, William the Conqueror decided to build a castle in the prosperous Saxon burgh of Oxford. Robert de Oily, I hope I'm saying that correctly, was nominated to lead the construction of the castle. De Oily decided to use the River Thames as a means of defence against oncoming enemies. This site is now called the Castle Mill Stream and it is visitable by the public. In 1074, de Oily founded a chapel within the castle, which was dedicated to and named after St. George. It is thought that this chapel was the initial groundwork for where Oxford University was established. In 1230, the castle was deemed not suitable for the military due to weak foundations and poor defences. Instead of it being demolished, Parliament decided that it had a better use to become Oxford Prison, which it operated for centuries. In 1577, a plague broke out, and it led to the death of Lord Lieutenant of Oxfordshire, 2 knights, 80 gentlemen, and an entire grand jury, including a relative of de Oily. In 1770, an in-depth report by then official prison reformer, John Howard, concluded that the prison was unfit for human habitation. In consequence, the prison then underwent a huge development program. Over the course of the 19th century, Oxford Prison was continually developed and new buildings were added. This included the new County Hall and the Oxfordshire Militia Armoury in 1854. Eventually, the prison had been extended enough to host a significant amount of inmates. This also included children. There was one little girl of 7 years old who was sentenced to 7 days at Oxford Prison for stealing a pram. In 1888, after the National Prison Reform, the prison commissioners took over the control of Oxford Prison and established Her Majesty's Prison, HM Prison, Oxford. In 1996, eventually the prison closed its doors for the last time and the ownership was reverted to Oxfordshire County Council. The castle secured a 200-year lease in 2006 and gained permission to develop the Oxford Castle Heritage Project, which secured a sustainable future for the site. So the castle is said to be haunted, and it has had so many sightings that actually once a year the castle hosts something called Ghost Fest. This usually runs in October for a week and costs £19 per person. The tours are an hour long and they are guided. So these are now stories of ghosts that have been spotted around the castle. Full descriptions of these sightings can be found on Oxford Castle website. There is said to be a man called Brother Bernard. He was a drunken monk who resided at the castle when the chapel existed. There has been reports of a smell of alcohol in the air, and there's also been actual sightings of Bernard sitting in a corner, and now that corner is aptly named Bernard's Corner. There has also been sightings of a ghost called Mary Blandy. Mary Blandy was a murderer in the 18th century. So it is said that Mary Blandy was in love with a man that her father did not approve of. It was because the father had found out, and Mary had found out, that this man had a family in Scotland. He had a wife and he had a child, and he would always tell Mary that he was going to divorce her. However, this was continuously stalled and he never divorced her, so therefore, of course, Mary's father did not approve of him. In an effort to make her father more approving and accepting of this man and the relationship, Mary decided to lace his food with what she called a love potion. However, this love potion was actually arsenic, and her father died. Mary testified that she truly believed that this was a love potion and that William, the man in this situation, her partner, had given it to her. However, the courts absolutely did not believe Mary and she was sentenced to death by hanging. So the sightings of Mary are not generally physical sightings. You don't really see her, but it has been said on occasion that if you insult her looks or the fact that she was old and unwed, she will slam doors and make herself known. In the 18th century, a lot of people were scarred with smallpox, and unfortunately it's said that Mary's skin was incredibly scarred with smallpox. She was also 32 and unwed, which at the time was a very old age to not be wed. So there was actually a time when a tour guide was telling this to people that were visiting, and because they were quite insulting about Mary's skin and Mary's age, a door slammed behind them, which the tour guide and the visitors now believe this is Mary because she was insulted by what people were saying about her. Another sighting, and I'm not sure if this was Mary or another lady, was that when the castle was silent one night, in the staff room, you could hear a distinct voice of a lady laughing. There is another incident when a lady who was walking the tour brought her guide dog with her, and the dog was fine until they reached the entrance of the crypt, and then the dog would stop. He was pulling away from his owner that he didn't want to go in. Apparently then the dog started whining and growling at something in the crypt. This then escalated into full-on angry barking, and apparently the dog didn't want to go any further. He had to be coerced to walk through the crypt, and he was so unsettled and kept barking until they reached the shop at the end of the route. A guest also gave their experience, and they said, "I attended a ghost hunt at Oxford Castle a few years back with my sister. While in one of the cells, I saw an orb. Then all of a sudden, I saw a figure forming next to my sister. I have never been so scared in all of my life. I grabbed my sister's hand and fled into the corridor, telling my sister what I had seen. Although it petrified me, it also made me want to see more." The general manager of the castle also gave her experience, and she said, "So just ahead of Ghost Fest, I had an utterly terrifying experience in the castle. I was just in the office with the door open, and the lift door on the landing outside started rattling, like someone was trying to get out. I jumped out of my chair and almost got to the door before being too scared to go any further, and it did it again. I honestly have never been so scared. I had to phone my boyfriend before I did a walk around the castle. There was no one around. I don't think I'm going to sleep tonight or work late alone again for a while." The castle is known to be haunted by various ghosts, and one of these ghosts is called Isaac Darkin. Isaac Darkin was a known highwayman who operated successfully in the Essex area. He was also known to have many mistresses. When Isaac was finally caught, he spent his time awaiting trial in Oxford Prison. Within just 4 hours of the trial, Isaac Darkin was found guilty and sentenced to death. Isaac Darkin's execution was really quite interesting because he didn't want to wait for the executioner. He decided to put the noose around his own head and then step off the ladder and kill himself. Because of this, people now believe that Darkin haunts Oxford Castle. So this next ghost carries quite a sad story, so if you're not ready to hear about that, maybe skip this just a minute. The spirit is said to be that of a lady called Anne Green, who in 1650 was accused of committing infanticide and therefore sentenced to death. She was sentenced to death by hanging, but actually managed to survive the ordeal. Anne's story is a sad one because actually what happened to her was that she had a miscarriage and she decided that she wanted to hide the fetus. Because she wanted to hide the death of her baby, it was deemed as murder, and that is why she was sentenced to death. However, it was the following day that I think it was 2 women, they went to check her coffin and they actually found that she had a very weak pulse. So because of this, they decided to resurrect her. I believe that the judge who had sentenced her to death actually died 3 days after Anne was trialed, so he couldn't contest the resurrection. It took days to resurrect Anne, and she was also made to lay in a bed with another woman, and this woman's job was to kind of rub Anne and keep her warm. Eventually, Anne went on to make a full recovery and actually lived a lovely life after this. She was married and had 3 children. But people do now believe that she haunts the castle as she technically died here once. I think because the prison has been standing around 1,000 years and a lot of people have died there and a lot of people were executed there because of the prison, this castle is now deemed incredibly haunted. Because of this, the castle now offers guided tours. You can have an hour tour, which is always guided, or if you have the money for it, you can stay overnight, and it costs you a whopping £1,250. Now, for £1,250, I would want a ghost to come up and scream straight in my face, but that's just me. You can stay over between the hours of, I believe it's 9 PM and 8 AM, and they do offer tea and coffee and a continental breakfast. I say it again though, I would be absolutely devastated if I'd paid out £1,200 and nothing happened to me. But if you have the money, go for it. Why not? Treat yourself. Now, if you're a ghost hunter, there was something else I found which I thought was quite interesting. You can actually hire out the castle between the hours of 6 p.m. and midnight. It will cost you around £140 per hour, but the castle is then yours to go and record and find anything out that you can within those hours. I haven't heard of a castle being that public about ghost hunting, so I thought that was pretty cool. If you just want to go and view the castle as a tourist, you absolutely can do. The tours start at £15.25 a person, but all the tours are guided, so you cannot freely roam the castle. There is also a gift shop at the end for souvenirs, and this gift shop is also open to the public. The opening hours of the castle are between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m, and the opening hours of the gift shop are between 10 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. There is not much more to say about the castle. It's interesting because the sightings are predominantly by people that have worked at the castle. It does make sense because obviously they'll be there more hours than the general public will, but I think that is why they offer ghost tours, because they do want to find out more about the castle and have more sightings. If you look on the Oxford Castle website, it is generally statements from those that work there. But this is only number 9 on the top haunted castles of England, so I have to give them a break because it does sound pretty haunted, although the statements don't necessarily come from the public. So if you're in Oxford, give it a go. It's only £15 per person. You get a whole hour tour, and then maybe you'll get yourself a little gift from the gift shop afterwards. For now though, that is all from me. Thank you so much again for tuning in. If you made it to the end, an extra special thank you to you. I really love doing this. I can't wait to do all the others on the list. I'm going to save the 2 top ones because I've done number 3. I'll save the 2 top ones for another time because they have got a lot of content and I cannot wait to go into it with you. But for now, that is all from me, and thank you so much again. Bye for now.